Here today, I have Dr. Moriah Brewer, who's joining us to talk about periods and women and rest and work and all the things. And I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here and to talk about, what it's culturally we've changed how we talk about periods and stuff, but it still can be a little taboo. So it's fun to talk about it and be more
Well,
visible with it.
this is for Feminist Founders, which is business owners, entrepreneurs, folks who are running small businesses who want to create more equitable and just worlds, who want to honor the full humanity of all people. And having periods is something that is for about 50% of the population for a large portion of their lives is a reality and it's just part of being human. And yet, I imagine if there's any men who happen to be watching, they're already feeling a little uncomfortable, and maybe even some women, because you're right. I think we've reduced a lot of stigma, certainly compared to 100 years ago. And yet, I think that is still something that many people have like the hushed tones around. We don't talk about this with other people. That's something you keep to yourself versus many other bodily things that we deal with. Like I just went and had a mammogram today. I talk about going to get my mammogram, or I talk about going to the doctor when I have a cold, or just other things that happen with my body. But with our periods, there still, I think, often is this like thing. And I wonder what you think that's about. Because I think there's a couple of reasons, and I'd be curious to hear what you think that's about.
I've got some thoughts. I've got some thoughts. Part of it, I think, is usefulness. Our periods are not clearly useful to people in society, to men, to other folks. So there's this invisibility we carry around it because it's not useful to anyone. So they're like, get it out of here. Like, we don't want to talk about it. I think we talk about pregnancy and other things like that because our uterus is being used and it has utility for the family and for society and things like that. But when it comes to our periods, it's just this private thing we carry alone. I remember my mom celebrated my first period, but like my dad felt really awkward about it. And, even just monthly, if I talked about pads or talked about certain things, it was just like, there was just this discomfort around it. And I think if periods were useful, I think if men could get some benefit out of it or extract some benefit out of it, we would talk about it more for sure. The other thing is, I think we've like constructed this social being of the human as a man, frankly. And so when we say, oh, it's a human thing, like it's a part of our humanity that we experience periods or that we menstruate or whatever it may be, men are like, well, no, because it's not how we conceive of our humanity, or it's not, it's outside. So and then it goes into.
Oh, I just lost you. Hold on. Let's get your audio back. And sorry, everyone. I know with the audio we may have. Oh,
Hear
are
me
you
again?
there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep
I
going.
don't know. I hope it works. But yeah, there's also, when we had a society where men went to work and women stayed home, there was this idea that men's worlds and men's life were public facing and women's was private. And so I think it's like all constructed under that. It's how we shape our gender and society around the idea that what goes on with women that is only about women is private stuff, and what goes on with men is like a public facing thing. I think there are many reasons, but I
Yeah.
honestly, I think them is usefulness, frankly.
I love that because I hadn't thought of it that way, and I think that is really interesting to consider. Another one that comes up for me is why women might self-silence around talking about when they're having their period, or even their needs when they're having, which we're going to get into. But I think part of that is it is perceived as a weakness because there are issues that come around. It's hormonal. There are so many things that can cause you to be tired, to be irritable, to be, to need extra care, to need some downtime. And in a world where we're trying to live up to that ideal, quote unquote, of being like a man, anything that makes us be perceived as weaker, less than, more needy, we also don't want to talk about because we don't want to draw attention to that. And so I think that's also something to think about.
Yeah, we don't want to highlight any gendered needs or gender differences that may exist because we fought for legitimacy and for visibility in terms of like being full humans and being like men, capable as men. And so anything that is evidence of us being different from men feels like regression or feels like it can be harmful to our social image, our political position, whatever it may be, economic, right? All of those things. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I feel like since we're talking about gender, it's a good place to say, certainly from the feminist founders' perspective, and probably yours as well, that we acknowledge that men can also menstruate, and that this is about bodies that menstruate. Not there are some gendered differences on the whole. When we speak about those things, those are more like societally perceived differences. But I just think it's important to acknowledge too that we're not excluding trans men who also have periods, and the very real challenges and actually compounding challenges that then also come with that set of that identity in that.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that because, yeah, even in this early conversation, I like to distinguish between sex and gender, even though both are technically kind of socially constructed.
Right.
But you're right. We're talking about menstruating bodies, which can exist across the gender spectrum. So
Yeah.
it's important to be
And
inclusive of
certainly some of those gendered things are, these are things that are considered norms. And so sometimes shorthand, we're speaking that way, but I just like to make sure that we make that note so that everyone knows, because it's about, again, honoring that full humanity of people. So why are you and I talking about periods? I think I might have jumped the gun and just gotten right into it because I think it's interesting. But I think tell people what your interest is. I know you have Like Home and you can tell people what that is, but even before you get to telling us what Like Home is and why, what made you go down this path of periods as an area of passion for you?
Yeah, I think I was even talking to my mom. She was like, "Look at the inconveniences in your life, or look at the struggles in your life, and that's probably where you'll think about your passion, or you'll think about an invention or something that you can contribute." And so for me, that was my monthly period. Like it was just a rough time of month for me. In college, I would get fevers, be vomiting, just like so tired, wouldn't go to class. It was just really rough. And some people thought I was being dramatic, frankly. And at times I thought I was being dramatic. I'm like, who am I performing for? Who could I possibly be dramatic for? But I'm just like, this. I was in pain. I was popping Tylenol like it was Tic Tacs, like just trying to make the pain go down. And over time, I'm 32. I'm about to be 33. I started my period when I was 12, so I've been menstruating for 20 years, and it took me about.
Oh, it's all right. Sorry, technical difficulties.
I know, geez, I really
It's all right.
wish.
You're good.
Okay,
I can hear you now.
okay.
She's been menstruating 20 years.
Yeah, I menstruated for 20 years, and it probably took me about 15 or 15, yeah, because in my 20s of like figuring out what's my setup. So like start tracking my period. At first it was irregular, but I start tracking my period to figure out, okay, when is it coming? How can I prepare? Like trying to shape my life around this thing that happens to me every month. And so I started tracking my period, which is how I learned that it was irregular. I tried a birth control in my 20s, which just made me bleed like for months like at a time or days at a time instead of that. And then I tried nutrition, like working with nutritionists, which actually helped my inflammation and my pain go down quite a bit. And it just felt like, okay, every month when I knew my period was coming, I'd get my tea, my heating pad, like my comfiest clothes, and just try and just bear down and get through it. And so it wasn't until talk about usefulness. I had also gone to the gynecologist several times, like trying to be like, hey, this is what I experienced. And they just prescribed me a higher dose of painkillers. And then some just kind of blew it off, like, yeah, periods are painful, and just kind of kept it pushing. So it wasn't until I was seeking assistance on fertility. My husband and I were struggling with fertility, or infertility. So we sought expertise. And it wasn't until then that I finally got some diagnoses and got some support. So I got diagnosed with PCOS, which is now PMOS. Got diagnosed with fibroids, and then I had a polyp or a growth in my uterus too. So it was just all these things that kind of happened in the last 2 or 3 years. And in that process, it kind of was a joke initially where I was like, it would be so nice if I could just go somewhere when I was on my period and just receive all the care that I needed. Like, it'd be nice to have a really comfy place and people who understand that I don't have to pretend like I'm not in pain or pretend like I'm not bleeding, or it would just be so nice if there was a community of people who just got it, and it was just that it wasn't something I had to do alone or struggle alone. And so I started thinking about, and I still would like to do this, a period care home where you can kind of go and there's silent rooms and there's comfy couches and you get tea, and you can have no contact or low contact. Like, I don't really like to talk to a ton of people, all that stuff. But then I decided, well, let me start with what may be more accessible to more people, which is like in-home services or virtual services. And so something that was really valuable to me was just all of the research and learning I was doing. I have a PhD in sociology, so I research. I like, knowing what I'm talking about or knowing what's going on. And so learning how to cycle sync, learning what foods work with certain parts of my cycle, and then just talking to my friends about it. And they're like, I had no idea about this. And so I'm like, oh, it'd be so great if there was a place, an app, where that's how Like Home came to be, a place where I could go or you could go and you'd have your profile that already lists all your typical symptoms and already lists all the things. And then you could get virtual support. So cycle syncing through nutritionists who provide insights into what foods would be best for you, or people who would even meal plan for you. Like, hey, here's a menu I developed for this phase of your cycle just to support you during this time. There's dietitians that I've talked to, even acupuncturists I've talked to that support with painful periods and things like that. There's just such a huge ecosystem of resources and people and research that could make people's lives better if they had access to it, if they knew it was available, and that this time of month wouldn't have to be something that you just grit and bear or something that you like anxiously anticipate. It could be something where you actually know you're the most supported during that time of month, and you experience the most community during that time of month. Beyond the virtual services, the idea would be that there be in-home services as well. So a period care doula that could provide and support you in your home. So that's kind of the why behind it and a little bit of the vision.
There's so many things there that I just want to like talk about, and it's so good because one, you talked about the like feeling crazy or like dramatic. Am I making this up? Am I, and again, like why and for whom, right? Like, but the way I think, because of how all the things we talked to the beginning and how society views periods, hides periods, makes women feel about periods, I mean, going back to this idea of women being hysterical and things, right? Like there is a long rooted history of sexism around menstruating bodies. And in particular, I think it's weaponized very harshly against women with menstruating bodies, where it is this like idea of hysteria and that we are being dramatic and that it's all too much and oh, get over it. And it's not that bad. And I think what can make that even more challenging is for some women, for some people who menstruate, it isn't that bad. So
Right.
as an example, I am a lucky person for whom I have never really had to deal with really intense cramping every once in a while, but a lot of and I certainly have not had to deal with fibroids and PMOS and all the other things that you've had to deal with. And so for me, my periods have been rather easily managed throughout my life. And now I'm getting to this lovely stage of life where they're starting to end. That comes with its own set of issues, which I'm sure you're going to learn a lot about too. Your mom's probably told you, but that can make it difficult when you have a portion of the population, like you already have a full almost 50% of the population that just doesn't menstruate, doesn't understand, can't, and won't, and in many ways is actively trying to belittle this experience. And then you have a portion of that other 50% for whom the experience of what a period can be is vastly different. Yeah. In the same way, pregnancy is vastly different, and so many things that our bodies do are a cancer journey can look different for everyone. Right? Like no matter what the thing is, everything is hyper individualized, and yet we are all made to sort of be like, well, the one person can handle it. One person handles it great, so why can't you? Right? We're all held up to the one ideal, and so I just, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking that makes things more challenging because then even in a workplace where you might have a woman boss and women coworkers and whatever, right? You might have other administrators all around you. There is still so much of this internalized sexism that we've all been given that then gets coupled with personal experience sometimes, whether it's their shame around their fact that they don't have the perfect period, or they're one of the lucky people who do have a pretty easy period. That ends up leaving a lot of working women feeling unsupported, right? Of like, and that thing you're saying of, is there something wrong with me? Am I the only one? Am I being dramatic? Again, why? But so how, like in a perfect world, what would you love to see for how we as a society treat people who menstruate? Just on the whole, in all the ways.
It goes back to the old faithful motto, believe women. This is just believe menstruating people. Like, it absolutely can be the case that it is different for, in a group of 10, that three of them have extremely severe, two of them have extremely severe, four of them have moderate, and how many did I say? Four have, have nothing. It's 3 days, it's delightful, and they move on, Um, and as a woman, as a person who menstruates, still I'm going to support the other one who goes, my sister-in-law has severe periods, like has sent her to the ER, endometriosis diagnosed, all of these things. My experience is not her experience, but she should have support. I believe that, and it may be the collectivist communal mindset where we've got to have to let go of the idea, well, it's not happening to me, so it must not be real, or it must not be as bad as you think. That is so frustrating for me, especially as a Black woman who has not been believed in healthcare spaces. I remember I talk about this whenever I talk about healthcare racism or medical racism. I had a concussion. I hit my head. It was really painful. Went in the ambulance, and the EMT asked me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your pain? And I remember thinking, it feels like an 8, but I'll say 6 because I think they'll think I'm being dramatic. So I said 6, and they said it's probably closer to a 4. So they wrote 4. So like, I screwed myself over. I mean, I was 19, I was a kid, but I screwed myself over, and then they added to that tax, So already in these spaces, women of color, Black people are up against so much that it really is as simple as believe women, believe people of color, believe the people who are saying they're going through what they're going through. Yeah, I mean, even for me, my mom had delightful periods, so she did not understand. She really thought I was being dramatic.
Right.
And then it wasn't until years later she had a painful period. She was like, "Is this what you've experienced?" I'm like, "Yes, this is what I've been experiencing." And obviously, I was a teenager too, so yes, there was a level of dramatics, but regardless, I think believing people about their experience is probably the simplest through line that we could use to change this
Yeah.
culture. But also, I just know that there's a huge cultural hump to get over with something like this. But it starts with companies offering menstrual or period leave, which some are. Only 2% of companies in the US at this point, but it was 0% 7 years ago. So hopefully we'll see.
Yeah.
And globally, we're actually seeing shifts in Italy, I think Japan as well, a few countries who are adopting kind of universally period or menstrual leave. So we've got a
And
while.
and I think that's one. So obviously in the workplace, menstrual leave, period leave, menstrual leave is a hugely important ideal for us to be moving towards. And certainly the US will probably be among the last of the places to do this because we aren't even doing universal health care. So
Right.
we have a long way to go. But I really like, I'm excited for you to help us all just even dream bigger. Like, what else would you really love to see? Because you mentioned like a home where you go. Like,
Yeah.
what is it that you feel like women, anyone who menstruates, like, what would you love to see happen? Like, if it were you and it was your ideal world, like what you would obviously, so you're taking the week or however long your cycle is, you're getting that time off of work. And then what?
Yeah, I would love to see people who menstruate not have to pretend like they weren't menstruating. So number one, I don't have to go to work if that's just, I mean, most of us need more rest during that time, even if, or we have additional nutritional needs, even if we don't experience pain or severe, symptoms, we still have increased nutritional needs. We still have increased fatigue or needs for rest. So I'd love to see people who menstruate be able to be self-determined during that week and be able to choose work or rest. I would love for period care products to be widely available and free. Frankly, something that has also I've explored during this time is period poverty. I think in Michigan, which my family is from, 2 out of 5 women experience period poverty, and they will skip work or school because they do not have period care products. I don't think that should be a thing for a basic human need, right? So yeah, self-determination, having access to products. And then the big part, and this is my space, the period care industry is a $40 billion industry, but it's all focused on products and discretion. Let me sell you something so that you can keep your period clean, hygiene really. Keep your period clean and discreet And so no one else can know that you are experiencing a period right now. I'd like to add to the industry by shifting our focus on service. I think that so much of what's missing from the period care industry is care. People need and deserve care during this period. Frankly, if I'm dreaming bigger, we talk about healthcare more broadly, but if I can just focus on this, people deserve care during this time. And there are different practices around that, different cultures that do it differently. I don't think our culture and this Western individualistic culture does a good job at service and care, especially to, again, certain marginalized groups. And so, yeah, if I'm dreaming big, I'm thinking about just equity overall. I'm thinking about self-determination. I'm thinking about not having to reduce your humanity for a capitalistic machine, which is what this all kind of comes down to as well. We would have universal healthcare, we'd have paternity leave, we'd have period leave if the impetus of profit or the profit motive was not so compelling for the ownership class. So
yeah, because we don't care about care, we care about profits, and
right.
Care work is not our most profitable center. And so,
which means we do not get paid equitably for the labor, but it's so much emotional and physical labor involved. So yeah, it's really a shame.
Well, and most of the folks doing care work are women, and then they're also bearing all the burdens of these other things and with their bodies. And you mentioned equity, and I think that's important because one thing I can hear people saying, this is my experience from corporate America. I'm a corporate America refugee, as many people are, and like done with that life, but still can hear those echoes of people who would say things like, well, that's not fair. If the women in the office are getting a week off every month and I don't because I don't menstruate, right? Whether that's because it's a man or a non-menstruator, or like also an older woman who's no longer menstruating. Like that could be a whole host of people who are coming up with that argument, right? In the same way, and I think it's an easy parallel here to say like, okay, we also have parents who have to take time to help with their children who have needs. And often that work falls on women for all the reasons we've talked about with care work and the undervaluing of it, and having babies and maternal leave and the difference between maternal and paternal leave. But anyway, I just hear that. And I would like for you to talk a little bit about equity versus equality and why that matters in this story.
Yeah. It's funny because everyone who kind of argues against me when I talk about equity just imagines a world where equality, I guess, was already a thing, and so we don't need equity. So when we talk about equality, we're thinking about sameness, right? We're thinking about what resources can we provide to everyone? How can we make sure everyone has the same thing, the thing we're giving them or whatever? Equity is about looking at the conditions. What conditions do we see certain groups experiencing? And how do we meet the needs or address the systemic barrier or the challenge or whatever the inequity? How do we address that? And that usually is more targeted than just saying, let's give everyone the same thing, the same resource, the same access to resource. Equity does the better job or the deeper work of examining why aren't we equal? Like that should be an important question that we're interrogating. If equality is our goal, why aren't we equal? What's the barrier? What's the challenge? And then how do we close the gap? And how we close the gap is equity. Whatever we figure out, turns out that Black women have higher levels of fibroids. So we need to think about nutritional, medical, maybe even surgical. Like we need to think about care holistically for this demographic rather than pretending that all people are struggling on the same level with this condition. And oh my gosh, this administration is doing a great job of just erasing and pretending like difference, pretending like inequality doesn't exist, and then just handing us a really shameful makeshift version of equality. So yeah, that's a little bit of the difference between equity and equality. And I personally believe in equity. If we were starting the whole society over, we could shoot for equality, but I still think we'd have to create barriers around inequality that will get in there. Oh, I can't even hear you.
I muted myself. Equality isn't possible when we look at periods, because there is a large portion of the population that just won't have them. And
Yeah.
and that's lovely for them, but they aren't seeing that as an advantage.
Right.
They right? If you don't see the baseline of like the privileged position is not having to deal with this thing that happens once a month in your body that's out of your control, that causes all sorts of things that happen with your body that affect
Yeah.
how you feel, how you can show up, your energy levels, all the things we've talked about. If you don't understand that not having to deal with that is already a privilege, then you're considering everyone equal when you're not, right? And so equity is saying we can't have equality here because I can't
Mhm.
make you have a period and I can't
Right.
force other people to not have them. So what does it look like to help that other person? What do
Yeah.
they need to give them the same advantage because you've already got this privilege? How do we close that gap?
And what people don't realize is whenever there's been a fight for equity, it has benefited more people than just the group. So if
Absolutely.
we got equity around people receiving care or leave and periods, you would probably have better leave for the things that pop up in your life too. That may be less regular or infrequent, but still could pop up in your life, and you wouldn't have to go up against as big a machine because we already fought for a period leave and menstrual care. You might get better disability leave. You might get better or even existing paternity leave. A lot of companies don't have that in the U.S. You might get mental health leave. Like there are so
Yeah.
many things that once we are willing to open and care for one demographic, we actually realize, oh my gosh, everyone in the workplace benefits when we take better care of different groups of people. We saw that with workers' rights. We saw that with the 5-day work week. Like people fought and protested and negotiated on your behalf. So now you get to benefit from it. And you're over here arguing because, well, I don't have a period. Good for you. You don't have a period, but you may have other life circumstances or conditions that arise. And you may want to get on the side to support this movement so that, if we're going to operate selfishly, so that you can benefit ultimately. But I certainly wish that there was more of a what happens to one of us happens to all of us perspective. I
Yeah.
certainly wish there was more of a collectivist, just like, even if it doesn't happen to me, that's fine. Like I can go to work without any additional conditions or concerns. Beautiful. Enjoy that privilege and make sure you don't universalize your privilege so it becomes invisible, and make sure you don't create barriers for other people to have access to the resources, the support that they need throughout their life.
Yeah. Instead of seeing the period as the problem, see the privilege of not having that, right? And I think that has been the thing that's been missing
Yeah.
for forever is that instead of saying let's shine the light on the privilege of those who don't have this experience, we're shining it on the people who have this experience and making it into a problem. And by the way, that speaks to the
Oh my
same thing that all examples of privilege and oppression
Oh
right
my
there.
gosh, right? We're always focusing on like, oh, we're in competition with each other. I'm like, yeah, but the billionaire, yeah, but the owner, yeah, but the system, right? Like if you just zoom out, why shouldn't you, whenever you need it, be able to take leave? You know what I mean? You know what I
Well,
mean?
and
So
exactly. I mean, my partner and feminist founders, Faith Clark, has talked about permission structures and how those are always a sign of an
surveillance,
oppressive environment. Like if your workplace is requiring permission, then you have a colonialized, like it is a very problematic situation because that's like an ownership situation, right?
yeah,
If my needs, I have to require someone else to give me permission to have my needs met. That is now we are modeling what we know we don't, most of us don't want anymore, right? But because what you said about like if it benefits me, it benefits you, and also you being more whole is good for all of us,
right,
regardless if I get a direct benefit or not. But I also just, it makes me think about how we do anything is how we do everything. And one of the reasons, something that like period care, where someone might say, we have bigger issues, bigger fish to fry, right? Like I can hear that kind of thing out there too. And I would say, but how we do anything is how we do everything. And when we tell a large group of people, your care doesn't matter, your needs aren't real, you are a problem because of these things
yeah.
in this one area, guess what? We're doing it everywhere. It's the same way we show up around grief, telling people you got 3 days and you better get over it.
And only nuclear family, like
Right.
I just
Right.
don't care about the rest of them. Or, yeah.
Exactly. And like, oh, you got to go, you're getting chemo. Well, okay, but you can only take so much time or you're going to start not getting paid. And I mean, it's just everything, right? So this may seem, for some people, it may not be an issue. You might look at it and think, one, I don't get periods, or two, I don't really believe they're that bad, or whatever. Like, oh, we can't afford to give people period leave. Whatever the thing is that you might be thinking about it, this is how we do anything, is how we do everything. And the mentality you bring to an issue like this probably is speaking volumes to the mentality you're bringing to so many other care related parts of business and life.
Agree. And if I can, do a little nod to the holiday coming up this weekend, um, people don't people don't understand how it's all connected. They have a very individualistic, capitalistic perspective, and the ideology. I was just talking to someone. The idea of this being the land of the free is a mythology. It's not an ideology. It's not real, right? The ideology in this country is actually around the individual over everything and capitalism, profit. So whenever I'm hearing people that, well, it's not me, it's not. I'm like, bro, what does it have to do with you? We're not talking about you. Like, we're not talking about you. And you could still vote and support, or you could still, but oh, it doesn't touch me. So it doesn't matter. And that, oh my gosh, it's such a frustration for me. But I completely agree. How we do one thing is how we do everything. I had another thought, but it's gone, so I'll let it go.
Well, if it comes back, let me know, because the last thing I want to talk about, I think the last thing we'll see, but you mentioned period doulas, and I just like heart eyes swooning. I love, like, there's something so, like, you can feel it in your body. I think as somebody who is either you've menstruated, like having a baby and just going through that whole, the pregnancy experience, if you've ever had a prolonged illness or a chronic illness, I mean, I think regardless if periods, again, how we do everything, regardless if that's the issue for you or not, most of us have had some experience where just the idea of somebody caring for us, being there at a time when you can't, like if you've ever been through grief, it's that same thing that often happens where community, they bring you food and they make sure you're fed and they get your house clean and they do your errands. And so often it's just happening without your awareness. It's just because you are just being allowed to rest, but we do so little of that in our culture. There are many cultures that do it incredibly well, talking about collectivism. Yeah. And I just think when you talk about that idea, I'm like, I can feel it in my bones of like, yeah, that's what we need. We need more of that, not less of that, not questioning that. And instead of it being about why should she get that, it should be like, why aren't we all getting that?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it speaks to something that I am seeing happen, particularly offline, is this return to community. And I talk to people, well, care seems to be one thing that is AI resistant, thankfully, at this stage at least.
I don't think the robots are going to be caring for us too. I mean, they'll probably be there, but they're not going to do a good job of it. We already know it.
It won't be efficient for them to care for us, so they will not care about us. But it just seems like that human to human connection and care is being reevaluated as something that matters. And it's like we've kind of devolved and dehumanized ourselves and said we didn't need, anytime you ignore a need, you're dehumanizing yourself. Anytime you ignore a need that you have as a person, you are dehumanizing yourself. So if we've ignored the need for connection, for care, for rest, whatever it is, we are slowly dehumanizing ourselves to fit better into a system that doesn't benefit from us being humans, right? So yeah, I think that this return to community and to care is so important. And I'm hoping that if we practice it more, we'll shift our thinking around it, we'll shift our ideologies around it, to be a community that is more collectivist. I don't know if on a large scale we'll get there, but I see it in micro. I see it, on micro levels and in real life evidence of. I've met a few period care doulas where they're. Oh.
Sorry, that's me. Go ahead.
You're fine. There, some are full spectrum doulas who just, once she's like, I started to realize whenever a person was experiencing fertility concerns, it usually was connected. It was happening in their, like if you looked at their period, their experience of their period, you could see kind of the evidence and everything. So she said, so I shifted my work to include period care and to help educate and support and let people know they're not alone. I've talked to working moms who was like, I left my daughter stay home from school because she wasn't feeling well. I didn't have enough leave. So I'm at work and my 14-year-old's home alone in pain. just care in that environment. And I think once upon a time we had communities where there was lots of aunties and other mamas and big sisters, all of these people that surrounded us in different ways. And I think that women privately created really important care spaces for each other. Again, guys, just with the 4th of July thing on my mind, I often think about enslaved women and what they went through around their periods and around birth and different things like that, and how much abuse and violence was around that. But I also know that so many of the women created care amongst and under this system of gratuitous violence and oppression. And so it kind of is a part of honoring a history, a legacy of women and people, women folk, caring for each other and saying, regardless of what your husband says, regardless of what a master or a system or whatever the people with power say we can or cannot do, we're going to care for each other. And that's the mentality, that's the ideology that I would like to put forward. I want people to have that really profound experience of being cared for when they're at their most vulnerable, when they did not expect care, when they were not taught that this was a time of rest or a time of additional care, that they would experience that and feel that, and then pass it on. And they would do it for others, because that's how we also reproduce and maintain communities. We don't burn out one group, we pass it on, and we make sure that everyone contributes and shares in the care.
I love that. First of all, when we talk about AI and this digital world we're living in, when I can get to the part of me that's like optimistic, which gets hard, as it may for you. The thing I do hold on to is these tools are like if these tools were used for good, it would look like, how do we remove so many of the tasks from people's lives so that we can have more spaciousness for care and community and all of that, right? I don't know I don't think, because of capitalism and everything, that's what it's about. But if it were that way, then it's beautiful. Like, sure, let the machines do the things that can be automated so that more of us have more capacity for rest and to care for each other and to be in community. And what you're talking about there, I love. I love the idea of thinking about more care around this particular issue, because we have death doulas, we have birth doulas, and we really can have doulas for anything, right? It's just about, how do we recognize need and then meet that need with the care that we all wish we could have, whether we experience that same thing or not. I've never had cancer, but I've also never doubted anyone's experience when they talk about their experience with cancer. And I just think if we could and I think most people, like, for whatever reason, that experience is one that so many people, where their hearts can open up. And if we could allow our hearts to open up that way for so many of the other experiences that so many of us go through, I just think it would make a huge difference. So
absolutely. I completely agree. It would be lovely. I'm gonna keep pushing towards it and meet people along the way who are aligned with it. And we're gonna do our best to resist the people who tell us it's not worth it or not worthy of it. Because I know it is. And I know too many people who menstruate, who suffer and who struggle and who do it inside, like alone and silently. And that's dehumanizing. I don't mess with that. So
because like you said, we're made to, everything tells us it needs to be hidden away. And so we all learn that message from the beginning. And I love that your mom celebrated you, because that's at least one way that people can begin to, rebuke that message from the start, to say, no, this is something to honor. And this is because it's going to be with you for the rest of, well, not the rest of your life,
but most of your adult life, right?
You got decades ahead. So why are we shaming and hiding this thing away? We didn't talk a lot about rest, but I would just say one other reason I think that going back to the very beginning of this and like why we don't talk about periods, I think part of that too is going kind of with the idea I said about weakness. It's also a time when the body demands more rest, and we do not honor rest in this country as a whole for anyone, let alone whether it's men or women, but certainly even more so the more marginalized identities you hold.
Absolutely. So I actually want to say two things. I'm going to say it out loud so I don't forget. So one, the barber story, and two, mothers at the university. Okay. So the barber story. We lived in Switzerland from the time where I was 12 till 16. And I remember my dad telling me that his barber has 6 weeks vacation every year. And at the time, my dad was like, "Wait, what do you mean you have 6?" They're like, "Oh yeah, every employee in this country guarantees 6 week, and then you can get more or whatever." But I was like, I know so many people in the U.S. have barely have a week of PTO or vacation days. So that was
Right.
one thing. It really, I remember in Europe, like people took their vacation. They went on trips for weeks long. It was never just like a quick 3 day, 4 day thing that we try and do here. It was a 2 week long trip to the
Yeah.
south of France or whatever it may be. And it was about what they valued. And most of them had smaller homes. Most of them had, not as nice cars. Like those things weren't as important to them as investing in experiences and travel and rest. So that was one thing. And then two, when I was working at a university, I remember learning that the people who or the faculty had, I believe, what it equated to like 3 months of maternity leave, and that the staff had maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks of maternity leave. And I remember thinking, like, are the needs of the faculty moms any different from the needs of the staff mom? Like, why would we have tiered maternity leave? That doesn't, either it's a need or it's not. Like either it's something that's necessary or it's not. 3 weeks to heal and to bond with your child and all of the things that come along with postpartum. It just seemed insane to me. But anyways, there seems to be really glaring examples of how even when you need it the most, right? My sister literally just gave birth, had a cesarean. It is one of the most intense surgeries you can undergo. People talk about, I think there's like 5 layers of skin and things that you cut through to,
Muscle.
right, muscle, all of it. It is a very intense surgery, but we all just go, oh, we've normalized birth, despite the mortality rates of women, particularly Black women in this country. So even in times where it's like really glaringly obvious that you need rest, that you need recovery, that you need support, we still do not value it.
Yeah.
And that needs to shift. Now we talk about women of leisure or people of leisure, and they are extremely wealthy and they have staff and they have all the support in the world. And I love that for you. Your capital is able to purchase that for you. Great. But what that's not actually rest or it's not cultural rest because it shifts the labor to poorer people, frankly. That's
Right.
what's happened whenever we talk about leisure or rest or some, we just shift the labor to people who have less power than us, have less of ability to, or fewer options, things of that nature. So
Yeah.
that
Which
may
goes
have,
back to your university example of why are some people getting more time and less time. And there is no answer to that other than we are prioritizing certain types of people over other people. And
absolutely
that's gross. And if there's no better answer and there's not, then that
right,
is something that needs to be evaluated.
right.
Um, we could talk a long time, Moriah. This has been amazing. Thank you for doing this. I really love it. Can you tell people just quickly where they can learn more about Like Home and support you and what you're doing?
Absolutely. So you can go to joinlikehome.com. I'm a researcher, so we're heavy in the research phase. So you can actually fill out the survey of data we're collecting. We have 300 respondents, which I'm so thankful. People are sharing their period stories, their period care needs, and really helping us build this from the ground up with input from the people that would, in theory, use it the most. Joinlikehome.com. I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram and Threads. In particular, I'm really in love with Threads right now and falling in love with Substack too, at Moriah Lynn Joe for my Threads, Instagram, and Substack. But this was
I
really
didn't see
awesome.
you on Substack, so I'll tag you. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Brewer. I know you recently earned the title, so people need to use it because that's hard work.
I'm used to it, but
Yeah, you gotta get used to it and demand it. I think it's amazing. I'm jealous someday. No, I never will. But anyway, you like research more than I do. But thank you so much for this conversation. I think it's so important, and I think the more that we talk about our periods, whether that we're currently having them at my stage of life, dealing with them almost every week because it's like the last hurrah or wherever you're at in it. But I think talking about it more because we've got to normalize these things. I think, I know it can be uncomfortable, but we also have to stand in that truth and know that that is like helping those who come after us. So thank you for doing what you're doing because I just think it's so valuable.
thank you. I appreciate it. I'm so thankful to have the space to share and to continue building. So we'll see how it goes.